You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
This is Andy.
And this is Matt.
And you're listening to
The Hop Podcast with no name.
What a dumb name.
It's so stupid. Episode 40. We're back.
We didn't know if we were going to be back.
No, I'm sure no one guessed that
by the weird ending to our last episode.
Maybe we'll answer questions, maybe won't. Which I think I'm going to almost be serious to start this.
Okay.
We did have a very honest conversation about if we would end it.
Yeah.
And because we set a very clear reason as to why we started it.
Correct. Yeah. I don't think our intention was ever for this podcast to go on and on and on and on. It was just as a mechanism to get information out to folks about what it looks like to use HOP concepts in practice. And then when we decided we didn't have anything else to say, we were just going to stop.
But we didn't want to say anything just to feel like we had to put out an episode. Or like we just wanted to.
Yeah.
We had a lot that we wanted to say. We felt like we said pretty much all of it. And then sat around for 2 weeks and said, there's probably more we could say.
Actually, what changed my mind was when we went to the conference and a bunch of people came up and were like, hey, the podcast is really helpful and we like that you're doing it. And I was like, oh, I think we're done. And the response was, oh, why? And so then I was like, well, we have to have something to talk about. And then 2 days later, somebody was like, hey, I have this topic that I was hoping you could cover on the podcast. And so, yeah, here we are.
All that to say, you see, we do listen. We do, when there are requests, we do listen. We take it seriously.
Yeah. So the topic that was requested is if we could do a series on explaining a situation and looking at it from not a HOP lens and then through a HOP lens, same situation, and then kind of going over all the different pushback and confusion that would be around that situation and how it would be handled. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah.
But we usually, people will ask us before we do a training, hey, should I listen to any one of your episodes? What do you recommend we start with, or what can I share with a leader or someone on my team to get them up to speed? Maybe not last episode. Maybe just leave that one as when you're having a tough day and you're like, I have to get through this. This is really tough stuff, and it takes a lot of energy and effort. I'm kind of tired. Just know that sometimes we are also tired. But yeah, this will be a good one for you to share, hopefully.
Yeah.
No pressure. Get it right, Andy.
I'm going to do my best. So the scenario we thought we would pick is pretty easy to visualize, which is helpful because we're on a podcast, so you can't see anything. And it is a real example that I believe Dr. Todd Conklin lived through, that we're just going to take as the basis for walking through what you would do in this type of situation, from a not hop lens or hop lens and kind of a bunch of variation in between. The situation is that, let's imagine it proactively. So nothing bad has happened, that you are walking outside as a leader and you see an employee standing on top of, let's say, a 40-foot high tank. Can you translate that to the meters in your head quickly? High.
13 or so meters.
Okay. So a tall tank.
13.333.
And you see them leap from one tank to another. And
how far is the gap?
And the gap is 2, maybe 3 feet.
So about a meter.
Yep.
Yep.
And they're up there taking a sample, and then they're going to the top of the next tank by leaping from one to the other. And it's just, between the tanks is just a sheer drop to the ground. And then the question is like, what do we do in that scenario? Like, what does that look like from a bunch of different perspectives? And
I'm guessing, this is just a guess, even though I've heard the story multiple times. I'm guessing you're not supposed to do that. That's not like, oh, well, there goes John jumping across. What are you supposed to do?
That's not how, let's just say, if there was ever a written procedure that said that the proper way to get from tank to tank is to jump the gap, that would be a big problem. So that's not the proper way to get from tank 1 to tank 2, right? Is to climb up. How high did I say these tanks were?
40 feet, which is, what? I gave 13.33. That's if it was yards. Meters are a little longer. So let's just say 12 or so meters.
Okay. I hope so. Can you do the math right now? No. And the proper way would be go up the ladder, right? And 3 points of contact the whole way. And the top of it would be, there'd be a place that was guarded for you to actually take the sample, because they're taking a sample at the top of the tank, and then to go back down the ladder and then go to the next tank and go up the ladder and back down. And in this case, let's just imagine there's 3 or 4 tanks in a row. Okay.
So 3 or 4 potential areas to leap.
Yes. Yeah. Well, 2 or 3, I would suppose, if there are 4 tanks, but yes.
We got
to go back to one. I don't know. And so I think probably anyone who is listening to the podcast could imagine the non-hop response to it, which on the one end of the spectrum would be, you call the person down, no questions asked, fire them on the spot.
Walk them to the gate.
Yep. And the belief around why historically the thought process is that would be the right thing to do, it's not like we just crazy made up the fact that felt like the right thing to do, is because the belief was that this person took unnecessary risk and they were a danger to themselves and to the company, and therefore we should not have them working for us because we shouldn't employ dangerous people, right? Or people that like take unnecessary risk.
Yeah, because I think adding to that point, we heard it last week, because if someone is willing to jump and doesn't have any regard for risk here, where else in their life or work or personal life do they not have regard either? We can't have those people in the system.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be the belief as to why that made sense to do. And then maybe a step closer to maybe a hop lens thought process of it is you would bring the person down and you would talk to them about the dangers of why you wouldn't leap from tank to tank. You wouldn't fire them immediately, but you'd have a coaching conversation around it, and you would have them explain sort of back to you why it was really important to follow this. And then you'd make some sort of mutual accountability agreement with each other that, hey, I care about your safety and I know you care about your safety. So we're just going to agree that you're not going to do this again.
And then you might audit more often, and
correct.
maybe
And then you might audit more often
or something.
yep.
Yeah.
To make sure that people are following.
I'm getting it. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Wow.
If we took it a step further as to how you might look at the event or what you saw, is you would see that action as an indication that there is something not working about the current design, right? The current system. So you'd see a behavior, and instead of immediately thinking that the problem lies with the person and they have to be fixed, that you would say, this is probably, if I'm a betting person, this is actually indicative of a system problem. And so for me to understand the system problem, which in this case feels as though it would be important to understand because of the nature of the consequence if something went wrong with that leap, right? So you would go and you would talk to the individual about maybe why it made sense to leap over that. And you might get to the place of thinking, I guess I could see why somebody would do that, but they shouldn't, right? And that's where a lot of people, I think, find themselves stuck, is that you understand that the system problem exists, but you're still stuck on the behavior. And so sometimes we'll go out and we'll try to learn about what's happening, and you get to an answer in your head of, well, the person was just trying to conserve energy. They didn't want to go up and down the ladder. And then the follow-up response that most of us have in our head about that is, yeah, that's not a good enough reason.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't be lazy. And so I'm still going to go back to that second solution set, which is I'm going to talk to them about why they need to put in the extra time and energy and effort to use the ladder because it's the only safe way to get from tank to tank. And then that still ends up being your solution set. Yeah. So you did the learning piece, but then the solution set kind of stays the same as it might have historically.
Disciplinary action.
Maybe coaching, or just re-edification of the importance of it, and then auditing more frequently to find out if people are still doing it, and then the re-coaching of those individuals.
Yeah,
as well.
we might not classify someone sitting down and explaining to us why that's bad as discipline, but the person receiving it probably feels like it's somewhat discipline.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Okay, so that's sort of another step along this continuum of what it looks like to apply some of the concepts. If you wanted to take another step, you would still look at the behavior as indicative of we're probably facing a system problem. You'd have conversation with the person as soon as you could of like, hey, can you teach me what it's like to actually take these samples? And they would teach you, and you would learn from that person. And then when you're having conversation at another time, you would be learning from other people that also have to take the sample. If it's high consequence like this, you might make that a priority, meaning you're going to try to pull people together that day to understand what it's looking like to actually do this process. And then as you are learning, the way you're classifying problems is in this case as design difficulties that people are trying to overcome. And you are taking what people are saying as face value of like, hey, this is what it's actually like to interact with this system. And you are having enough conversation that you can put yourself in that person's perspective. You can put yourself in their shoes enough to understand the perspective to get to a place where you're thinking, I probably would jump the gap too if I did this job every day, meaning you become risk normalized to something, right? If I did this job every day, if I was subject to the same sort of time pressures and work responsibilities, if I was actually in this person's shoes, I can now wrap my head around why it would be logical to jump the gap. And when you're in that space, now it's a different problem to solve because you can better define the problem of, okay, the problem people are facing is that it doesn't feel as though there's operational fidelity to climb up and down these ladders every time I have to take this sample. And when I take the samples, I have to do it, 4 times a day for these 4 different tanks, and the amount of energy that I'm putting into that, it doesn't make sense for me to do it.
The numbers haven't changed in 5 years.
Correct. And the numbers haven't changed, right? And it already feels like an unnecessary task. And from that perspective, you start to realize that, oh, unless we change something about how these samples are being taken or the frequency with which these samples are being taken, anything about that, that it is very likely that other people are going to do the same thing, even if somehow the one individual that you saw, something magical happens and they never do it ever again. When that person leaves the job and you put somebody else in that position, probability is quite high that they would come to the same conclusion. And we cannot continuously monitor every single process for compliance with every single rule all the time. That is not a great way for us to be able to solve problems, and it's incredibly expensive to try to do. So you throw that out as the solution set, right?
Well, hopefully. There may or may not have been some organizations that we've seen try it.
Correct. That's fair enough, right? But you recognize that that's probably not a great systemic solution. Instead, we take a look at, in this case, I think the solution set that was put in place is that a walkway was created on top of the tanks, so that you make the right way the easy way, right? So the walkway is what people were trying to create by jumping. So you actually create the walkway instead of people jumping. So that would be the space that you would look at if you were looking at this HOP lens. And what's fascinating is that there aren't too many organizations that would do that proactively yet.
In what sense?
I know a lot of organizations, or we've worked with a lot of people, that putting in the walkway after someone has lost their life jumping from tank to tank seems to make a lot of sense to people. Doing it proactively, we're getting stuck on in most places. Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that I think HOP is really aimed at trying to help address, is that we're really good in retrospect putting in a solution set. But when we proactively learn about something and the writing's kind of it's already on the wall, right? Like with all the conditions are present for a really, really bad day to happen, it's there for the taking. But we don't tend to change anything because nothing bad has happened yet.
But when we find, in those situations, when we find someone is doing that, we think to ourselves, we just need people to follow the rules. It's going to keep us safe.
Correct.
And if you can't follow the rules, you can't work on this job at this place, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That feels like we're always going to have people in situations where they have to make tough trade-offs. So we need you to always follow the rules we have to make sure that you're safe.
And that feels like an adequate solution, right? That feels enough. And I think the HOP lens in this place is the thought that that's not enough. Right. And oftentimes people feel as though in interpreting the difference between the first way, the first way of resolving the problem of we're going to fire the person or we're going to write the person up, and this learning and improving way of solving the problem, for most people, the interpretation of the difference between that is actually the lowering of expectations for the person who's doing the work, following the rules, whoever the end user of the task is. The difference feels like it's lowering of expectations.
Yeah. So when we find someone is jumping the gap, we go, oh, wow. Well, that's good for us to know. Thank you.
Right. Soft hug.
Thanks for telling us. Nothing wrong with that now that we know.
Yeah. Get
back out there.
Yeah. And in reality, or at least from the seat that I'm sitting in, it is a changing of expectations, but it's not a lowering of expectations of the folks that are doing the work. It's a raising of expectations for those of us that are designing, planning work, and have some amount of resourcing to change things. It is a recognition that although we can say, never jump again, the chance of that actually happening all the time for the rest of the use of this design is very, very low. And so when you recognize that that is true, then the accountability of changing something falls to the people that have some amount of resourcing to make that change. And so there is an expectation resetting. And for me personally, it was changing the expectations that I had of myself to be able to get things done, right? To be able to make changes to a process. I no longer felt comfortable saying, well, I mean, I guess we're not going to be able to fix this issue for a long period of time. Or I was no longer satisfied with the fact that my first answer was that we didn't have funding to change something. Or the second answer was, hey, we can't make that change for 2 or 3 years. Or the third answer was, we just need people to follow the rules. That no longer became a satisfying answer. And the expectations that I had for myself in being able to help manifest a real solution set to something went up. And the reason it was no longer satisfying is that I recognized that independent of how many times I had the conversation with folks not to jump that gap, that it was still going to be happening. And people could look me in the face and say, hey, I'm never going to do it again. And maybe that individual is telling the truth. I have no idea. Maybe magically they don't do it again. But anyone else subject to that same environment had an equal probability that that was going to feel like the right thing to do. So it was only a matter of time before those ingredients came back together for a really bad day. So I suddenly felt like I'm racing the clock to make this change. I'm racing the clock to make a change to a poor initial design, or a design that's not functioning the way that we wanted it to, or a design that's changed over time and it doesn't work as well for the end user as we expected it to. I'm racing against the clock to change that, because the reality of how people are interfacing with it is probably not going to change nearly as much as I would wish it would. Not that it won't budge at all. Not that bringing people together and say, hey, it's going to be X amount of time before this change is made. How do you want to manage this in the interim? Like, how do we want to take these samples now? Because it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be 5 months, 6 months, a year before we get this platform up here. What should we do in the interim? Those are all really, really important things to do. But if we don't have an interim solution, right, and we just say, in the meantime, I just need you to follow the rules and comply, I was no longer disillusioned to believe that that was actually always going to happen. And that changed the immediacy with which I believed we needed to solve the problem.
So what you're describing is a ridiculous increase in your sense of urgency.
Yes, absolutely.
And not just relying on, well, I'm going to have a conversation and I'm going to explain to them why they can't do this anymore, and then I won't see them doing it anymore, so therefore I think it's probably not happening.
Correct.
You knew that I'm going to explain to them what's going on, hear what they have to do, we're going to talk about it. But when I walk away, it's likely it's still going to happen, and so I need to act with urgency.
Correct. Yeah. And if it doesn't happen with this one group that I was able to talk to, it might happen with another group or a subcontract team that comes on site to be able to do this, that the design itself is leading to the behavior. And until the design changes, I can't prevent every single person that has to interface with it from doing something that I deem to be risky, right? That is not a good way of managing the problem. We can have conversation around it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But certainly managing the problem itself means changing the accessibility of taking that sample.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, last episode we talked about how challenging this can be and if it's worth the effort to do it. And now you're just saying, also be more urgent. So we're really selling this hop stuff. In case you couldn't hear, I do think there's an incredible a power behind honest conversation that goes into, hey, this is what I saw. Saw you jump. I recognize that maybe in your shoes, I'd be doing the same thing. So let's have a conversation about it. And then can we, in this conversation, either just two of us or get more people involved, come up with a solution in the meantime before we have the ideal solution in place?
Yeah.
That I think is an incredibly important part, because it's not just, okay, I saw you jump. For the next 6 months, you can jump until we get something.
Correct. Yeah. No, that's not the answer. Right.
At all.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
Yeah. And we can maybe talk more to that point next time.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering, which I'm sure you are, hey, Matt, you walked back your previous measurement about meters, and then you said yards. Why are you so sure of that? It's because I swam in high school and in college. That's a known fact. And when you're swimming, yards are shorter than meters, because when you have to go to a meters pool, you're like, this is terrible. Why do I do this? But then you think about that in yards anyway. But that's just a small fact about Matt. You're welcome. Put it on your refrigerator, and we'll see you next time.
Well, that's it.
Yep. Another one in the books. We did it.
If you want to send us any of your thoughts, actually, fling us any of your thoughts, you can do so at the website www.hoppodcast.com.
That's HOPPODCAST.com.
It's still such a stupid name.
It's such a different name. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.